got you updated. This is Radio Manzi News in English.
This is Radio Imanzi, broadcasting from Kigali. Here is the news in English, brought to you by Fiona Umuganwa. The headlines. A day like this is a moment when people are speechless, not because of lacking freedom to speak as someone to characterize us, but because of what we went through, President Paul Kagame said. From Thursday, April 7th, flags will be flown at half-mast to mark the 28th commemoration of the 1994 genocide against Tutsi, Kwibuka 28. The 1994 genocide against the Tutsi was neither an accident nor unavoidable, Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General of the United Nations, said. Now the news in detail. A day like this is a moment when people are speechless, not because of lacking freedom to speak as some want to characterize us, but because of what we went through, President Paul Kagame said at the ceremony to mark the 28th commemoration of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, Kwibuka 28. The president shared the message at the Kigali's Genocide Memorial as the country started the commemoration of the genocide against the Tutsi. The president pointed out that we are a small country, but we are big on justice.
Also imagine if those of us who were carrying arms, if we had allowed ourselves to pursue those who were killing our people indiscriminately and also killed them. First of all, we would be right to do so, but we didn't. We spared them. Some of them are still living today in their homes, in their villages. Others are in the government, they're doing business. Some of those who are responsible or who benefited. We didn't do that. And yet, people will have guts to say what they say about us or do against us, what they still do up to now. But let me tell you, we are a small country, but we are big on justice. And some of those are big and powerful countries, but they are very small on justice. They have no lessons to teach anyone, because they are part of this history that saw over 1 million of our people perish. They are the cause. And the Rwandans just executed, killed their fellow Rwandans. But the history of that originated where we all know, originated from that.
In the closing remarks, President Paul Kagame noted that every year that passes makes Rwanda stronger and better.
These very hard, bad lessons should never be wasted. In the last 28 years, every year that passes makes us stronger and better people. And for being who we want to be, we shall be the ones to decide, not anybody deciding for us what and how to be.
Earlier, the President and First Lady Janet Kagame had laid a wreath at the memorial in honor of the over 250,000 genocide victims who were laid to rest at this memorial. Later, they lit the flame of remembrance, which is also at the Genocide Memorial. The event was attended by senior officials in government, diplomatic corps, civil society, and business community, among others. We shall listen to President Paul Kagame's whole speech after the news. As Rwanda began the 28th commemoration of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, Rwandans have been urged to take part in all activities and programs planned during this period that means a lot in the history of Rwanda and humanity in general. In the villages, discussions on the history of the genocide against the Tutsi are being held, on which the Minister of Local Government, Gatabazi Jean-Marie Vianney, urged everyone to participate in. Local leaders were also called on to partner with Ibuka so that all commemoration activities can be held in adherence to COVID-19 measures. From Thursday, April 7th, flags will be flown at half-mast to mark the 28th commemoration of the 1994 genocide against Tutsi, Kwibuka 28. Nafta Ahishakiye, the Executive Secretary of Ibuka, the umbrella body of genocide survivors organizations, said the whole world needs to understand that commemorating the genocide against the Tutsi is necessary. We request the entire world to collaborate in this continued fight against genocide denial. It is also important for the world to understand that justice is key. Countries that continue to give genocide suspects safe haven need to think twice. Countries that have no laws punishing the crime of genocide need to enact them and act accordingly, Aishati added. During this, Ibuka should also continue advocating for the interests of genocide survivors, including their safety and welfare, as well as push to see that judicial cases are concluded so that justice is served. Jean Damascene Bizimana, the Minister of National Unity and Civic Engagement, noted that the main message for the world includes a reminder that nearly 3 decades have passed since the UN General Assembly resolved that every year, April 7th, be designated as the International Day of Reflection on the 1994 genocide against Tutsi in Rwanda. Bizimana said, "This is a moment to remember the genocide against Tutsi, a time to reflect on that history and pay particular attention to mistakes made so that the UN can draw lessons so as to ably prevent and deter the reoccurrence of genocide anywhere else." Our other message now is that what the victims of the genocide and Rwandans in general need is justice, because most of the masterminds of the genocide ran away to foreign countries and even acquired foreign nationalities. They are in Europe, in Africa, in the America, but every country that hosts them has a responsibility to see them brought to justice or send them to Rwanda for trial, because when justice is not delivered, it means countries continue failing. The minister reiterated Kigali's request that countries pursue hundreds of perpetrators of the genocide against the Tutsi who are on their territories. There are more than 1,400 arrest warrants issued by the government of Rwanda, and all those people should be found and taken to courts of law. Every year, just like other sectors, the sports fraternity in Rwanda holds activities to commemorate the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. Sports tournaments are organized to remember the athletes, administration officials that were killed during the genocide, but also to teach the young generations about reconciliation and unity, since sports is looked at as one of the forces to not only unite Rwandans, but also a tool to promote peace. This year's sports events, according to Placide Bagabo, the president of Genocide Memorial Tournaments Organizing Committee, will be played from May 1st to 31st. He said so far they have talked to all the federations to inform them that the competitions will be played in May. The tournaments are always in various sporting disciplines, including football, basketball, volleyball, among others. Last year, the federations which organized Genocide Memorial Tournaments include taekwondo, volleyball, NPC, handball, table tennis, chess, and cricket. The Bank of Africa joined Rwanda in the 28th commemoration of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. The managing director of the Bank of Africa, Rwanda, Abdelhamid Belabshil, left this message on behalf of the Bank of Africa.
Today, on behalf of the Board of Directors, the management, and all the staff of Bank of Africa, I join the nation and the rest of the world for the 28th commemoration of the genocide against the Tutsi in 1994. We take the time to remember, mourn, and honor many lives lost. Looking at the grim truth of what took place and how Rwanda rose from the ashes of the genocide against the Tutsi, I am proud to be in such a resilient country and very honored to humbly contribute to building an even greater and better Rwanda. Our thoughts go to the victims and survivors of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, as we remember, unite, and renew.
Tanzania's topmost diplomat on Thursday, April 7, appealed to countries worldwide to arrest and try Rwandan genocide fugitives on the run on their territories as one of the strong measures to prevent impunity and the recurrence of genocide. This was as Ambassador Liberata Mulamula, Tanzania's Minister for Foreign Affairs and East African Cooperation, graced an event to mark the 28th commemoration of the 1994 genocide against Tutsi, Kwibuka 28, in Dar es Salaam, the largest city and financial hub of Tanzania. The event was organized by the Rwandan High Commission there in partnership with the UN Country Office. During the commemoration ceremony, Mulamula noted that the annual event is the call to remember in that 28 years after the genocide against the Tutsi, we stand with our sisters and brothers of Rwanda to commemorate a dark and tragic day in the history of humanity. She said, as we stand in solidarity with those who survived and support their continued quest for justice to hold the perpetrators of these atrocities accountable. In this regard, we appeal to the international community to arrest and try genocide suspects on their territories who are yet to face justice for their role in the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi as one of the strong measures to prevent impunity and the recurrence of genocide. The 1994 genocide against the Tutsi was neither an accident nor unavoidable. Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General of the United Nations, said in his message to mark the 28th commemoration of the 1994 genocide against Tutsi, Kwibuka 28. The UN chief made the remarks this Thursday at an event held by the African Union in commemoration of the genocide against the Tutsi at the African Union headquarters in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. The African Union Commission and the Permanent Mission of the Republic of Rwanda to the African Union have jointly organized the commemoration that is planned to run over 100 days from April 7th, 2022 to 3rd July 2022. We honor their memory, who stand in awe of the resilience of the survivors, said Guterres in his speech.
I'm grateful to join you for this International Day of Reflection on the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda. Together, we pay tribute to the 1 million people who were murdered in just 100 days in 1994, the overwhelming majority Tutsi, but moderate Hutu and others who oppose the genocide too. We honor their memory. We stand in awe of the resilience of the survivors, and we reflect on our failures as an international community. The genocide was neither an accident nor unavoidable. It was deliberate, systematic, and carried out in broad daylight. No one who followed world affairs or watched the news could deny the sickening violence taking place. Yet, too few spoke out, and fewer still tried to intervene. Much more could have and should have been done. A generation after the events, the stain of shame endures. As we remember the bloodshed 28 years ago, we recognize that we always have a choice: to choose humanity over hatred, compassion over cruelty, courage over complacency, and reconciliation over rage. The principle of the responsibility to protect entails that we can no longer stand idle in the face of atrocity crimes. Through my call to action and other initiatives, human rights stand firmly at the heart of everything we do. My special advisor on the prevention of genocide is monitoring developments worldwide for risks of genocide and other atrocity crimes. And I've placed the agenda of prevention at the center of our work. Today, international criminal justice, though far from perfect, has shown how perpetrators can no longer assume impunity. The remarkable work of the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda, the first court in history to convict an individual of genocide, was instrumental in this effort. And it has demonstrated how justice is indispensable for sustainable peace. Rwanda today stands as a powerful testament of the human spirit's ability to heal even the deepest wounds and emerge from the darkest depths to rebuild a stronger society. After having suffered unspeakable gender-based violence, women today hold 60% of parliamentary seats. And Rwanda is the fourth largest contributor to UN peacekeeping operations, risking their own soldiers to spare others the pain they themselves have known. Excellencies, the genocide against the Tutsi raised questions that affect all humankind. Fundamental questions about the role of the Security Council, the effectiveness of peacekeeping, the need to end impunity for international crimes, the need to address the roots of violence, and the fragility of civility. We have great tests before us. Today, Ukraine is in flames, and all the new conflicts faster in the Middle East, Africa, and beyond. The Security Council agrees mostly to disagree, contributing to an environment of perceived impunity for state and non-state actors. Wars are raging, inequalities widening, and poverty growing, and all are breeding grounds for resentment, anxiety, and anger. Meanwhile, we see hate speech, including dehumanizing disinformation, racist tropes, and genocide denial and distortion, proliferating both on and offline. Today of all days, we must recognize the dangers of intolerance, irrationality, and bigotry in every society. As we look back with remorse, let us look ahead with resolve. Let us commit to be ever vigilant and to never forget. And let us pay meaningful tribute to the Rwandans who perished by building a future of dignity, tolerance, and human rights for all. Thank you.
The President of the UN General Assembly, Abdullah Shahid, also noted that we honor the survivors who mastered the strength and courage to defy all odds.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, 28 years ago, Rwanda witnessed the horrors of the 1994 genocide. Triggered by hate speech and propaganda, friends and neighbors turned into enemies. More than 1 million women, children, and men perished needlessly. We come together today to pay our respects to the lives and memories of those who are lost. We also honor the survivors who, like Miss Providence Umugwaneza, mustered the strength and courage to defy odds. Their bravery and resilience stand as a beacon of hope for the people of Rwanda and many more across the world. Today, Rwanda has rebuilt from the ashes of horrific tragedy and destruction, evidenced by its economic, social, and political developments. It laid the foundation for these achievements by having embarked on a better path, one of forgiveness and reconciliation, leaving behind past resentments and acknowledging the common humanity of all. I commend the resilience and leadership of the people of Rwanda for finding the grace within themselves to heal, to reconcile, and to embrace. As we light candles and commemorate this dark chapter of history, let us ensure our commitments to stand against racism, hate speech, xenophobia, and all forms of discrimination continue to burn brighter than the darkness of hate and violence. In solidarity with the people of Rwanda, in memory of the victims, and in respect of the survivors, let us recommit to upholding the principles of human rights, peace, and security. And let us continue to reach for the ideal of never again. On this day, my heart is with all Rwandans. Like them, let us remember Kuibuka.
The permanent observer of the African Union to the United Nations, Fatima Kiari Mohammed, pointed out that commemorating the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda is not only an occasion for contemplation and reflection, but also an opportunity to honor the over 1 million people who lost their lives.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor to join you today as we gather once again to commemorate the anniversary of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda under the theme Remember, Unite, Renew. The annual commemoration of the events that took place in 1994, where the world witnessed one of the most horrific tragedies in modern history, is not only an occasion for contemplation and reflection, but also an opportunity to honor the over 1 million people who lost their lives, the fallen heroes and victims of this heinous crime against humanity. While honoring the victims who lost their lives, we honor their memories and say a silent prayer in their honor. Humanity must remember and learn from this experience so we can continue to fight against the ideology of hate and impunity while teaching tolerance and responsibility. While honoring the survivors, we honor their struggle, their stories, and most importantly, their strength as they go through the journey of healing every day. It is therefore important that we listen to their stories and that we learn from their reconciliation and forgiveness processes. The genocide in Rwanda was triggered by hate speech and propaganda, which has now become a global phenomenon, particularly in the misuse of social media and the manipulation of information and the spread of fake news. If used within a politically charged context, this can be used as a manipulative tool to mobilize fear and anger and to incite violence and fatal action. Hate speech and discrimination are therefore a plague that must be contained through education, counter-narratives, and the promotion of empathy and understanding. We must strengthen our efforts individually and collectively to raise greater awareness about the value of life and humanity, and to protect and to uphold fundamental human rights and the dignity of all human beings, no matter their tribe, race, or religion. As I conclude with deep reflection, I join all the voices today to call on all citizens, communities, and populations around the world to renew their pledge to fight against aggression and all forms of hate. It is our duty to remember. It is our responsibility to do better, and it is an obligation to renew our resolve to ensure that such an atrocity never happens again.
Clever Gatete, the permanent representative of the Republic of Rwanda to the United Nations, says our hope is that the testimonies of the genocide survivors remind us of our shared human dignity.
Your Excellency, Mr. Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, Your Excellency, Mr. Abdallah Shahid, President of the 76th Session of the United Nations General Assembly, Your Excellency, Ambassador Fatima Muhammad, the Permanent Observer of the African Union to the United Nations, Ms. Providence Mugwaneza, survivor of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, Excellencies, Permanent Representatives to the United Nations, dear survivors, fellow compatriots, and friends of Rwanda, I wish to thank all of you for joining us on this solemn occasion as we mark the 28th commemoration of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda. I'd like to thank in particular His Excellency Mr. Antonio Guterres, His Excellency Mr. Abdallah Shahid, and Her Excellency Fatima Muhammad for being with us today and for their statements that you have just heard. I thank Mrs. Providence Mugwaneza, who by sharing her testimony preserves the memory of the genocide against the Tutsi. Excellencies, dear survivors and friends, each year on April 7th, Rwanda begins 100 days of commemorating the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi that claimed the lives of over 1 million of our people. In his Kwibuka address last year, His Excellency Paul Kagame, the President of the Republic of Rwanda, said, and I quote, "Kwibuka challenges us to reflect on the context of the present moment as well as the cumulative history that has led us here," end quote. For Rwanda, the annual commemoration is a time to remember the victims, honor the courage of survivors, and acknowledge the resilience of Rwandans and their commitment to rebuilding their country. Rwanda is especially encouraged that the United Nations General Assembly designated 7th April as the International Day of Reflection of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda. It shows the commitment of member states to learn from history and prevent the recurrence of genocide anywhere. Our hope is that the testimonies you have heard in the past and the one delivered by Ms. Providence Mugwaneza today reminds us of our shared human dignity. Excellencies, dear survivors and friends, in recent years, there has been a rise in denial of the genocide against the Tutsi in academia and media. Remembrance is an important tool to counter genocide denial, which in turn is vital to genocide prevention. By keeping the flame of remembrance alive, we counter intentional deceit with truth and facts, thereby preventing trivialization of experiences of survivors and erasing the memory of the genocide victims. Education is also integral to fighting genocide denial. To this end, we believe that the United Nations Outreach Program on the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi should be given all the necessary tools and resources it needs to be able to carry out its mandate. Strong support should also be extended to the UN Office of Genocide Prevention and the responsibility to protect in order to fulfill its mandate. Given the prevalence of genocide denial and hate speech, Rwanda calls for an international global conference to provide an opportunity for member states to discuss how to counter and criminalize genocide denial. Excellencies, dear survivors and friends, the priority of Rwanda is the search for justice to reaffirm the dignity of survivors and genocide victims. Justice is also critical to genocide prevention, as holding perpetrators accountable for their crimes prevents them from spreading their hateful ideology. All member states have a moral duty to arrest, try, or extradite fugitives on their territories. Judicial cooperation is required not only by the principle of international law, but also by our common decency and humanity. To this end, we commend the work of the Office of the Prosecutor of the International Residual Mechanism for Criminal Tribunals on the efforts to apprehend genocide perpetrators still at large. In closing, the Kwibuka theme of Remember, Unite, Renew represents our commitment to remembering our painful past and renew our resolve to stay together and rebuild our nation. Rwanda has emerged as a beacon of hope because we chose to build our nation where all Rwandans enjoy equal rights and opportunities. We have built stable and reliable institutions to deliver peace, security, and development for our people. Our commitment to accountability, unity, and reconciliation is relentless and irreversible. As we begin the 100 days of commemoration today, we are reminded that the journey to remember, unite, and renew is a long one. However, Rwandans deeply value unity, dignity, and self-reliance, and because of this, we will defend our hard-earned nationhood and build a common and prosperous future. I thank you.
With that, we come to the end of tonight's edition. Following up is the President Paul Kagame's speech at the commemoration.
Mwiriwe neza, mwaramutse neza mwese. Bayobozi muri hano b'inzego z'igihugu cyacu, abanyarwanda mwese batumirwa bakuriye bahagarariye ibihugu byanyu hano mu Rwanda n'imiryango mpuzamahanga, ubundi umwanya nk'uyu the hour, the day, the week, the year. Now we are in the 28th year, remembering. It's a moment people are speechless. Not lacking freedom to speak, as some people would want to refer to us as a country that we have no freedom to speak. That's rubbish. Just doesn't make sense. But the reason is also clear why people, just imagine the testimony we have just heard. And people being hunted down day and night for who they were, for who some of them are still today. Also imagine if those of us who were carrying arms If we had allowed ourselves to pursue those who were killing our people, indiscriminately, and also killed them, first of all, we would be right to do so. But we didn't. We spared them. Some of them are still living today in their homes, in their villages. Others are in the government, they're doing business. Some of those who are responsible or who benefited. We didn't do that. And yet, people will have guts to say what they say about us or do against us, what they still do up to now. But let me tell you, we are a small country, but we are big on justice. And some of those are big and powerful countries, but they are very small on justice. They have no lessons to teach anyone, because they are part of this history that saw over 1 million of our people perish. They are the cause. And the Rwandans just executed, killed their fellow Rwandans. But the history of that originated where we all know, originated from that. So the very reasons that what we suffered, what we endured here, originated from there, is the reason they cannot give us peace. They want to cover up their responsibility. They want to cover up their silence. When the millions of people here in Rwanda needed them to speak out, to speak up, to come to their help. So in the end, the story becomes that of, these Rwandans, these Africans, are just killing each other. They're killing themselves. So there is no one who is right, there is no one who is wrong. We are all the same, according to them. We are not the same. That's why we did not kill another 1 million on top of the one we lost on the hands of these criminals, some of whom are even protected, even now, by the very countries that talk about justice, that give lessons about justice. Forget about justice. Let's talk about other things. They talk about democracy. They talk about all kinds of things. As far as I know, there are 3 systems that govern the world. One is the so-called democracy. The other is what they call autocracy. The third in between, that is silent, that is powerful, is that of hypocrisy. 3 systems: democracy, autocracy, in between, the most powerful, very silent, effective, and that is hypocrisy. But for us, we've learned our lessons. We will carry the names anyone is going to give us. I have no problem with that. But the lesson we have learned, and the lesson of things we knew anyway from the beginning, some of us, is that it doesn't matter how far you go from here, thousands, tens of thousands of kilometers, you are not going to find people that are more important or have more important lives than us, than we are. No, there are no more important people anywhere than we are. There are no such more important lives than ours. Much as our lives were destroyed, were wasted, as this testimony given by the young man there tells us. I will say all these things just even for the benefit of our young people, that those who were born at the time are now 28. That growing must have taught them the lessons of our history, the history of this land. The land in which you find the very brave men and women the heroes, if you will. But I have a problem with the word hero and its definition, because there is no hero in our situation like this one. And because when you are talking of heroes, you are talking of a situation that was so bad that it had to have heroes for doing what they did, the right things, the good things, to save themselves and to save others from what was wrong that was going on. But then I asked myself, maybe the best thing is not to have heroes. It is not to have that situation that produces heroes. Like in our situation, how does one become a hero? And you know, you've lost 1 million people over. More people were killed than could have been saved, or that needed to be saved. So that means being a hero, I wish we could not have it. I wish we did not have that situation that has to produce heroes. We would be better off. And another thing I have that is problematic with that word is that you can also manufacture heroes. You can decide to baptize somebody a hero, especially when you are powerful. You can create it, and if anybody raises an argument, they are made to shut down, shut up. That's what I meant when I said the powerful are powerful, they are big, but small on justice. They even talk about freedoms. And yet, as we know, they create false stories about a people, about Rwanda, about genocide. And when you argue with the facts and you want to present facts that actually they also know, there is that power to tell everyone not to give you space to express your opinion, to answer back, to argue. And yet they are the same people who will start accusing of accusing others of lack of freedom to express themselves. What I'm talking about is not an old story in terms of when it last happened. No, it happens even today. You find a renowned newspaper in some powerful place, falsifying stories about us, about Rwandans, about the genocide, about our history. And when somebody wants to say, look, that's not correct, this is what it is, these are facts, you know, you'll find it's like they have agreed among themselves, all channels through which you could have communicated or placed a reply, not to listen to you, because they want to have what they are playing, the only thing playing in everybody's ears. But make no mistake, in this land of ours, small as it is, it has no small people. Like we did in the past, guided by the truth, by what is right, and it did not use the means we had, the possibility we had, to kill those who killed our people. You know, you can imagine people who even doubt our justice system. Then you have Rwanda in our constitution, in our set of laws, having abolished death sentence, death penalty. Some of these powerful countries still hang people or electrocute them. They do that. In fact, for us to have even thought about abolishing the death penalty at a time we had so many people to justifiably hang. And these people miss that point. They miss the point that we are actually a country of justice, a country of laws. We believe in the rule of law. Because if we didn't, why do we do all these things? There is no amount of pressure. Let no one tell you lies. This we did ourselves. It's not because anybody influenced us or put pressure on us, and because who would put pressure on us when they are the ones doing the same thing? In any case. And then we have even people we have forgiven who were associated with this. The heart happened that we heard from in the testimony. People who were part of that, continuing to be part of that, even now, and forget that we have actually forgiven them. So they are forgiven. They had been tried by the courts, found guilty for many years. In the middle of serving their sentence, we forgive them. Next, these are the people supposed to bring to Rwanda democracy. It's a joke. And you are doing it in a wrong place, in a place that understands many things about us, our limitations, but our power to defend and protect this land and the people of this land. Those people who go around talking nonsense every day, they should take a moment and remember a situation like this we are talking about today. That in actual fact also remember that it has produced different people in this land. Our children, our grandchildren, we have a duty to make sure they understand this and they are there for this land, for the people of this land. Well, but we also know many things, including our limitations. We have no power to stop it or to prevent it. But to have the power to confront it. It happens every day. But this gives us, some of us, a good opportunity to remind people of all this. I cannot end without thanking leaders of our country, the citizens of our country, the young people who still find it in themselves to be normal human beings, even what has happened to them. Like, I'm really surprised that we have so many of these who still find in themselves the energy to live the way lives should be lived as normal human beings. But the most important thing is these very hard, bad lessons should never be wasted. In the last 28 years, every year that passes makes us stronger and better people. And for being who we want to be, we shall be the ones to decide, not anybody deciding for us what and how to be. For those who keep running their false stories and imagine people could not even, I think to be fair, the majority of the people in this world recognize what happened here and give it the name it should be called. Again, but there are others who say, no, but you see, no, it's only not Tutsis who died, it's also others. I mean, first of all, you're just saying the obvious. In that situation, what you're saying is obvious. But I think here we're talking about something else. You know, when people, you know, everybody knows here, or those who want to know, you know, there are people who are called cockroaches here. Cockroaches, the name cockroach was reserved for a specific group of people. No. So, and when they were killing cockroaches. This is what they were saying. So they were saying it publicly. So to say that it was a genocide targeting Tutsis, how can it be wrong? How can it be questioned? How can it be argued about? Unless you have something else, another problem. And this is now what gives room to all these other genocidaires to start talking about championing democracy. Their newfound breed of people who are democratic, who want to bring to Rwanda democracy. Rwanda that lacks democracy and lacks freedom of speech and lacks everything normal and human. Well, but what do you do? If somebody is insulting you, you take it. It's better not to insult back. You just absorb it and do whatever you want to do for yourself, for you. So the lessons learned for the young people, for our country in this land, is to say, let's just do for ourselves what we need to do to be what we want to be, and the rest it's a struggle, it's a fight. We shall give it a good fight. Thank you very much.